Hello Steam Machines, welcome back. This is Mr. E from Conducting Music, bringing you a new episode of the MicroBit MIDI, or MicroMIDI in short. That's the video in which we transform the microbit into a musical instrument using the MIDI language and other cool devices. Today's video is focused on minimalism, which was a very popular compositional current in the second half of the 20th century, with various degrees of success. It became very popular in the United States of America, and it was very interesting to all of us percussionists because of a few composers, probably the most popular of whom was Steve Reich, brought marimbas, vibraphones, clave, and lots of other percussion instruments to the forefront of performance, making us much more popular, so thank you. Minimalism kind of faded over the decades and came back with various degrees of success with new waves of minimalism, but possibly the most popular forms were through the popular music, so for example from techno and all of the related genre, but also quite a lot of repetitive and cycling progressions in pop and hip-hop and other forms of modern music. Today we focus on one piece in particular called clapping music, but as per the other videos I'm not gonna be too philological with it. We're gonna start with that idea and then create our very own piece of music using Bandlab, Google Chrome, and a microbit. In brief, you just need two people or two groups clapping a certain pattern. The pattern goes like this: taka-ta, 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 taka-ta. Every 12 repetitions, the second player or the second group loses a quaver and keeps going further and further away from the initial or homorhythmic pattern. But of course, after a certain time, the unison, actually the homorhythmic pattern appears again, and that signals the end of the composition. We're gonna create a drum pattern on Bandlab. Then I'm gonna show you how to create a code on the microbit that repeats a melodic pattern as opposed to a rhythmic one. And when you get your shake, our beloved shake on the microbit, adds a little quaver that's causing a slippage on the pattern. The two players go further and further out of sync as we keep repeating the shake, and then they come back into unison. We're going to use a slightly different approach today, starting from Bandlab and then moving on to the Makecode. So launch your Bandlab, create a new project, and click on Drum Machine today, Drum Machine. You can delete the first regions just by clicking on them and then backspace. And then if you want to audition the pre-made sample, here we go, you can just press the play button. Okay, I've changed the tempo up here from 120 to 59. Let's go and clear up. I suggest using a different kit for this. Let's go to drum kits and indie rock. Okay, now that we got our instrument ready, we can create the pattern. I'm gonna stick to the original pattern, which is taka-ta, 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 and play around with the keyboard until I find some pattern that I like that sounds good. Once you've got one that you like, please go and create it. Please be careful because that rhythm, of course, is a 3-4 rhythm instead of a 4-4, so you're just gonna have to complete the first three. However, if you like to follow my recipe, I'm just not gonna talk about columns here. You're gonna have to fill in 1, 2, 3, skip the fourth here, and then 1, 2, skip the 3 and use the 4. And here, skip the 1 and do 2 and 3. If you want to have a quick look at how I actually notated it, and this is for the bass I'm going to use later on, this is the rhythmic solution that I have adopted, which is not the same as the original score written in 12/8 or in compound quadruple. I just went down to a 3/4, forget about this C here, it's got nothing to do with the real-time signature, and it's a semi-semi-quaver, quaver, semi-quaver, quaver, tied semi-quaver, so a quaver, a semi-quaver, and a quaver. So ta-ta-ta, ta-ta, ta ta. Okay, now that we got it, we can paste it in, and please make sure to rewind the playhead to the beginning and click Add A. The first bar, of course, by default, is brought in as a 4/4 bar, but we actually want to worry about only the first 3. Okay, so that's why here at the top I've only selected 3/4 beat. So you can create a loop just by dragging on top of this. If you click in the middle, you can drag it left and right. And if you want to stretch it and shrink it, you can just click on the edges. Make sure that this horseshoe shape icon is selected. That means it's snapping to the grid. Okay, and you see that it's much less smooth now. It's just fixed there. And now we can listen back to it and see how it works. At this stage, we want to go and create the code that will allow the micro:bit to play a pattern algorithmically. Okay, we're in step 1, install our favorite extension, the MIDI extension. 3 clicks, advanced, extensions, type in MIDI and click on MIDI here. Secondly, we need to initialize the MIDI, so please click on MIDI and grab the usual block from the very bottom, which is MIDI use raw serial. If you do not read music and you're not too sure about what those crazy symbols mean, not to worry, just copy my blocks. So what I'm gonna create first of all is a loop that turns on with the button A. So I'm gonna grab my button A and grab a loop. This time I wanna get a while loop and I'm gonna put it while true. The loops are these ones here, green. The reason for doing this is that every time you press A, this is gonna play pretty much forever. And I wanna bring in these notes. So let's go to MIDI and let's bring these in. As always, you can duplicate and copy. And once you're ready, let's go and place the notes in. Now that you got the notes, let's not forget to input the rhythm. So every time you see a semiquaver, so a note with 2 flags, 2 black lines up there, that's going to be a quarter of a beat, or in other words, a semiquaver, so the first 2. Every time you see only 1 flag, like that black line there, so for the third note, which is a G, is going to be a quaver, so half a beat. And that's it. The only tricky bit is this one, which is called a tied note, where 2 semiquavers are together. And of course, they are worth a quaver. So I'm just gonna complete real quick. When you press button A, the sound will start. Now, I've done a few tests before doing this lesson, of course, and you remember that I brought the time down here to 59. Unfortunately, the time of the micro:bit is not the same. You would think it is, but no, it's not. So instead of using the tempo 59, we're going to be using the tempo 62. It's going to be a little bit faster, or at least the micro:bit thinks it's going to be faster. So let's go into music and find our tempo. There we go. Music, set tempo 2. Perfect. And at this stage, we want to set it to 62, or in other words, about 3 BPM away from what you have selected here. On this next step, we want to create a little if function that says whenever you shake the micro:bit, you will get an extra note, an extra semiquaver or a quarter of a beat that will make your pattern a little bit longer, thus going a little bit out of sync with the main loop. And as you do this 12 times, why 12 times? Because the loop is 3 beats long. Each of these skips is worth a quarter of a beat. So a quarter, so 4 times 3, 4 times 3, 12. So we're going to create a variable, and it's going to be called a state check. So every time you shake this, let's call it an alarm goes on. And if the alarm is on, an extra note is added. And as soon as the extra note is added, the alarm goes off. So let's create our quarter beat rest. Go on a variable and create a variable which is called rest. As soon as you got it, bring it in at the bottom of your onStart. We don't want it to be an integer, we want it to be a boolean. So either true or false. Click on logic, scroll down, grab a false, place it in. Now, every time we shake the microbit, this gets turned to true. And if it's true, an extra note will be added down here. So let's see how we can do this. Go to input shake. We change this to true. So you can simply duplicate it, bring it in, and copy it into true. We want to add an if statement that says, if this is true, we're going to add a rest of a quarter of a beat and then set it down to false again so that the normal pattern can stay. So to create a state check, we need to go into our logic and get an if statement, which is the first one. Make sure it's at the bottom of this. And it's going to be adding a note only if the rest is set to true. So let's go and create a comparison. So you get this 0 equals 0, place the variable rest. It's easy, there's only one here. And then instead of being 0, because this is gonna create an error, you see, because rest cannot be an integer on this code, we're gonna go into logic, scroll down, and get our true. If rest is found to be true, this is gonna be executed. So what do we want to be included? Well, a rest. So go into music and grab a rest. Scroll down and change it to a quarter of a beat. Should we do something else? I think so. We need to turn this to false. Because otherwise, once it's on all the time. Think of it as a light. We've turned the light on with a shake, but if we leave it on, it's gonna be adding this rest at every repetition. Instead, we do not want to repeat every time. Only do that rest once every 12. Copy this block from the beginning, from the start block, drag it down, place it underneath. So just so we're clear, what's happening is, as soon as you press the button A, this loop is going to be played. It's going to be played pretty much forever. If you shake your microbit, this rest is going to be turned into true. And as soon as this loop gets to the end, because this time it is true, it's going to add a quarter of a beat rest. Your pattern is going to be a little bit longer and it's going to go out of phase with the drums. Lastly, we need to get this turned back into false so that you can repeat the original version of the loop. At this stage, please don't forget to click on download. Go and find your microbit. Drag and drop the newly designed code onto the microbit. And wait a few moments for the magic sound. Press on button A and make sure that the green lights here flicker. Back on Bandlab, we are now ready to add another track. And I would like to add a bass. Again, this is a subjective choice. Add a track, click on instruments, and inside instruments, I'm gonna go to bass, and then grab maybe just this bass legato will do the trick. I'm gonna try with a microbit and see how it sounds. Just make sure that here, on a Mac, you've got the IAC driver bus or the MIDI loop selected on a Windows, and press button A. That was quite underwhelming. Please take a moment, pause the video, and try to figure out why that's an issue. The notes were played correctly, the MIDI was set up correctly, the code is also correct. However, the bass is a bass, so it's low. And even though we went to the bottom of the scale of the microbit speaker set, it was not low enough. So please jump onto the JavaScript with me. We're only gonna go there for a few moments. Don't be scared, it's gonna be very easy. We're gonna halve those frequencies and make sure that we can reach the lower octave. Back into the code, click on the JavaScript. Don't be afraid, don't worry, we're gonna do something very simple. You see at the beginning here, you got certain numbers. Unless you're a musician, you will probably never come across these. However, for those of you who play a musical instrument, I'm sure you're very familiar with 440 or 442, depending on the country in which you play instruments. 440 is called concert A, so it's that specific frequency at which we tune the instrument. 220 is an octave below that, and what we're looking for actually is yet another octave below. So it's very easy, it's just a mathematical function. Please divide everything by 2. So all you need to do is /2 on all of these numbers. Once you're done, catch your breath and go back onto blocks. You will see that the division module has been added. The frequencies are taken care of, so we don't have to worry about it. The only thing we remain to do is to download again, drag and drop the new block onto the microbit, and now give it a quick test. Sounds pretty good. Remember to press button A when you want to start. It's going to be quite difficult to synchronize it with the drums to start with, but don't worry, with a little bit of practice you'll get it. And every time you want the extra rest to be added, just shake the microbit. I'm going to try and give you a little demonstration from here. So here we go, we start. Now I'm going to shake. See, that was a bit shorter? Sorry, a bit longer. Normal. Long. Here. Okay, when you're ready, press the reset button and that'll stop it. Now, what we want to do is try and perform it. So I'm not going to be too worried about counting the right number of repetitions, because the principle is we need to start together and through a number of shakes go out of phase, out of phase, out of phase, and then come back together. Musically speaking, I think personally, we're not so interested in the process. Once you have created it, the process is done. But from the listener perspective, I think the very interesting part is to enter a sort of meditative state, because there's so many repetitions of the same material that you can actually drift off into your own thoughts. And whilst you may appreciate the quality of the different patterns, it's also a kind of a journey between the beginning, the stability, the homorhythmic pattern, into complete chaos where you're not sure where you are, you just rely on the computer to actually keep the tempo, keep the beat, and then back into normality towards the end. So let's see how this performance goes, and the drums are about to start. Alright everybody, I hope you enjoyed this little journey into the MicroMIDI, discovering the minimalism. So in brief, what we did is we set up a drum loop, drawing as an inspiration the rhythmic pattern of clapping music by Reich. The sound is something like ta-ka-ta, ta-ka-ta, ka-ta. Once we've done the rhythm with the drum machine, we then moved into creating a code on the microbeat that actually transforms that rhythmic pattern into a melodic one. And every time we shake, operates a state check that adds a quarter beat semiquaver rest into our code, thus making the second pattern a little bit longer, sending it out of sync with pattern 1. And the two players are pretty much going further and further away into oblivion, but because the pattern is circular, at some point they match again. So that's why we had the, let's call it the consonant state, or in better words, the homorhythmic state at the beginning and at the end of our performance. As you've probably heard, the rhythm is not that precise, and that's because software is extremely precise, the hardware, MicroMIDI, is a little bit shorter and slower. And also you've noticed that the BPMs were completely different. There was a 59 and a 62. Why is that? Well, the MicroMIDI, for example, can rely only on its own processor. So if the processor is busy, sending the messages, closing the messages, checking the status checks, it's going to take longer to do the thing. So the bigger the code, the less precise the machine is going to be. I'm going to try and explore other ways to synchronize other experiments in different ways. We can use radio functions, we can use multiple microbits, but more to come in the next videos. I hope you'll enjoy this, and as always, thank you for watching, and thank you to the Lingnan University of the Liberal Arts in Hong Kong. This is it from Mr. Ian Conducting Music, closing this episode of the MicroMIDI. Bye bye guys, stay curious.